Hey guys, so today's movie that I'm going to be discussing is one that I couldn't wait to talk about. It premiered at this year's Cannes Film Festival to critical acclaim and even won the Best Actress award for its star Renate Reinsve. It's the new romantic comedy from Norwegian filmmaker Joachim Trier, who previously directed films Oslo 31st of August and Thelma, and this film is called The Worst Person in the World. I got to see this film at the London Film Festival, and I'm so glad to say that not only is it a bloody marvellous film, which I think has a very decent chance of winning the Best International Feature at next year's Oscars, but it's definitely one of the best films of 2021. It'll probably show up in my top 10 of the year, but most importantly, I think this is one of the best romantic comedies of all time. And I know that is a bold statement. Normally I roll my eyes when I hear the words rom-com, but there is something very special about The Worst Person in the World. This is one of those films which I think my generation, yes, that's right, the millennials, will find themselves identifying with in a really meaningful way. I really love this film, but have you guys seen The Worst Person in the World? If you have, what did you think of it? Let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. Also help support the channel by hitting that thumbs up button. If you haven't done so already, click subscribe. The film is split into 12 chapters, a prologue and an epilogue, and is essentially a character study of a young woman called Julie, played with freewheeling spirit by Renate Reinsve. We follow Julie through her late 20s into her early 30s. You know, that time in life where you're technically an adult, but you're still figuring out the whole adulting thing. When the film starts, the world is at her feet and she enjoys her freedom, but when it comes to making the choices which will carve out her future, whether it be socially, professionally, or romantically, she's indecisive as fuck. And to me, that is just so relatable. Like, for my generation, we were raised to think that we could be whatever we wanted, but because our choices are endless, it's often difficult for us to choose. The privilege of having choices and options can actually be quite a burden because we don't often know if we're making the right choice. Have I picked the right career path? Have I picked the right partner? Have I found the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, or am I just settling? Often I do find myself asking, have I chosen the correct path? There's a great scene quite early on in the film where Julie crashes this party where she meets this guy called Ivan, who's played by Herbert Nordrum. They're both in relationships with other people, but there is an attraction, so they spend the evening exploring where the line of cheating is without ever actually crossing it. It's a very intimate and at times sexually charged scene, but after the party ends and the two characters go the separate ways, there's a very symbolic shot at a crossroads, and the crossroads themselves is a metaphor for the choices that Julie chooses or doesn't choose. And that's why I found Julie to be a very empathetic character. The title of this film might seem a bit hyperbolic because she's not really the worst person in the world, but because Julie lacks follow through or doesn't commit to anything, she kind of feels like she hasn't accomplished anything, like she's stuck and feeling unfulfilled. And I felt that same way too. You do feel shitty and lonely and miserable and like a failure, like you're the worst person in the world. I'm sure I'm making this out to sound like a very depressing movie, but it's really not. I mean, yes, there is certainly some sad stuff in it, but Trier and co-writer Eskil Vogt counteract the heavy themes with a lot of comedy, as well as some very creative set pieces which keep the film very engaging. There's one scene where Julie is trying to decide whether or not to break up with her comic strip artist boyfriend Axel, who's played by Anders Danielsen Lee, you guys might recognize from 22nd of July. And in this scene, the whole city of Oslo is in freeze frame apart from Julie herself. Because Julie wants to remain in this moment, to bask in it a little while longer. She wants time to literally stand still. And the whole scene is just beautifully done. And there's another sequence a little bit later on where Julie takes some magic mushrooms and we see all of her insecurities about body image, aging, and her father issues come to life in this very trippy sequence. And I just thought it was a very clever visual method of allowing the audience to get inside the headspace of Julie herself. These types of bold creative choices could have easily gone wrong, but Trier has such a tight grasp on what it is he's trying to say about this character that the tonal shifts never felt jarring. It completely works. And because Trier doesn't structure this film in a traditional formulaic rom-com-y way, he uses chapters and there's frequent time jumps throughout the film, it's actually quite a refreshing change of pace for a romantic comedy. It was definitely a gamble to structure the film this way, but it paid off. I also need to take a moment to praise the performances. Renate Reinsve is a revelation as Julie. This is a proper A Star is Born performance. And that's because Reinsve delivers a fully formed and complex character. Julie is smart, funny, talented, ambitious, but she's also flawed because she's unfocused and often makes self-destructive choices because she doesn't want to commit to anything. It's a beautiful portrayal of somebody going on an existential quest to find themselves. And like the film itself, Reinsve manages to straddle the line between comedic and dramatic performance just perfectly. I would love to see her get a Best Actress nomination for this performance, but because Best Actress is already shaping up to be such a stacked year, and because she is a bit of a newcomer, I feel like she might struggle to break into the Best Actress category. And if we're going to talk Oscar nominations, at the very least, Anders Danielsen Lee should be in the conversation for Best Supporting Actor because his performance is just incredible. He's more than just Julie's paramour. He's a necessary counterpoint to Julie because he's in his 40s. He has a better sense of self. He knows what he wants, which is something that Julie lacks. They're two people in different stages of life, which is why they don't often see eye to eye, but Renate Reinsve and Anders Danielsen Lee are just phenomenal together. Definitely one of the best on-screen pairings of the year. So it's time to ask the three questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? Absolutely. The Worst Person in the World is definitely a movie to add to my collection. It's going on the wall at some point. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? Oh, for sure. This film might feel like it's tailor-made for my generation, Generation Y, but there's a universality to the ideas this film explores, which transcends generations. It's one of the most relatable and sincere romantic comedies I've ever seen. It's a rom-com that is grounded in reality, but somehow a little bit experimental, while all the while remaining completely accessible and refreshing and just so much fun to watch. It's just marvelous the way that it all clicks into place. I think there's something in this film that every adult can appreciate. So yeah, for me, this is a must-watch film. I can't recommend it enough. And third question, what score to give it out of 10? The Worst Person in the World is one of the best films of 2021. I think it does have a good chance of winning that Best International Feature Oscar, and rightfully so. So I'm gonna give it a score of 10 out of 10, but it's also a film that I think everybody should watch at least once before they die. It's just fantastic. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I would love to hear your thoughts on The Worst Person in the World. Let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. Help support my channel by hitting that thumbs up button. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to click subscribe. And if you want to follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, all those links in that video description down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Airfield, and I'll see you next time.